Good evening and welcome to our public meeting for the Anderson Dam Seismic Retrofit. I am Chris Hayes. I'm the acting assistant CEO for Valley Water, and I'll serve as excuse me. I will serve as your MC tonight. We'd like to welcome those who are participating over Zoom. The meeting is also being recorded so that anyone who misses tonight's meeting can play it back in the future. All you have to do is go to Valley Water's YouTube channel to watch it. A few housekeeping items before we start. For the attendees in the Morgan Hill Community Center, people here tonight, the restrooms are located outside the doors. Go left and down the hall. We also have refreshments, snacks in the back. Help yourself to cookies and coffee at any time, especially if Ryan bores you with his presentation. I'd like to check out also, we have a table full of valuable water conservation information giveaways. Even after a wet winter and spring, we're asking everyone to make water conservation a way of life. Following the meeting, we asked that you fill out a brief survey to let us know how we did. It's very valuable feedback. We try to tailor our presentations towards what we received and what the public actually wants to see. So that's a real good tool if you don't mind filling it out. Unfortunately, Chair Varela couldn't be here this evening. He was looking forward to kind of getting out and mingling, but something's been kind of ping-ponging through our board members, and he's ill tonight. So he will be here next time. We come out here twice a year. He's looking forward to seeing everybody, but he does want to pass along his regrets and apologies for not being here. Before we start, I'd like to say that welcome to Morgan Hill Mayor Mark Turner. Do we have anyone on Zoom that we should be shouting out? I don't see a flag from Boil Water staff, so I'm assuming that it's just us here tonight. And now, let's see. I'd like to thank Parks and Rec because without the Parks Department, this wouldn't be possible. Obviously, Anderson is a joint venture between Santa Clara Valley Water District and Santa Clara County Parks. And then we're eager to share the latest information about both the Anderson Dam Tunnel project and the progress for the new outlet tunnel, as well as the schedule for the Seismic Retrofit program. So the tunnel is the first phase of the larger program. I think everyone here has probably heard how the project was split in two in February of 2020 by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. We were able to start tunnel construction in 2021. So it's been ongoing for a bit. We're about 25% of the way through the total project. We expect the tunnel to finish in 2024 with some channel work to complete in 2025, which part after that in 2026 we'll start the overall Seismic Retrofit project. I'm sure I just spoiled some Ryan's slides. Usually I do that part, so that's my bad. Anyway, so I think, I've talked long enough. I think everyone knows that rebuilding Anderson Dam is Valley Water's top priority. It's a water supply hub, and it provides incidental flood protection for the downstream community. It's been prioritized by both the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, the Division of Safety of Dams, and our congressional delegation. So it's everyone's top priority that we get this done in the time limit. So as that's it, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan McCarter. He's the acting deputy operating officer for our Dam Safety and Capital Division. So basically he's taking the role that I used to occupy while I am rotating through the position that I'm currently in. So I'm gonna let Ryan go ahead and have at it.
All right, everybody hear me okay? All right. I'm not using this. Much closer. Okay. How's that? Everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I think we also have 65 people on Zoom. Not sure how many of those people work for Valley Water, but sure a handful do. So really excited to have everybody joining us here tonight, as well as the people online. All right, so really excited to share the updates here on the Anderson Dam Seismic Retrofit project. So as Chris mentioned, we've started the Anderson Dam tunnel. We've made some pretty significant progress. I can't wait to show you some of the pictures. If you haven't already seen the poster boards in the back, you can see some of those images, but happy to talk about that some more. And also I'm going to walk through the dam retrofit project and sort of what the sequence of that looks like and really how that embankment comes down and then comes back up. So really excited to share that with you as well. So before we get into it, I just want to share the program schedule. So the Anderson Dam Seismic Retrofit project has really turned into a program in itself with multiple projects that kind of feed into completing the overall seismic retrofit. So you can see up on the top here, this is the Anderson Dam Seismic Retrofit, this green box up here. And so we're looking at, as Chris mentioned, starting with construction procurement in 2025 and really starting in 2026. And I'll walk through the schedule of that a bit more as I get through the presentation. But I wanted to point out, we've been working on design for quite a while here. It goes back to 2013. We're still working on design. We're at about a 90% level with DSOD and FERC, working through all the different technical challenges there, but it is progressing pretty well. We're also working on our environmental review under CEQA process, so that's an ongoing effort. We're hoping to have our draft EIR out this summer, late July, early August timeframe is what we're thinking now. So for all that are interested and looking forward to reading a couple thousand pages of the EIR that'll be coming out soon. And of course, we're also working on our permitting concurrently with all that work too. So working through all the different permits we need environmental wise through construction. So these three things all need to get done before we start construction, as well as these 5 projects down here below. So these are physical projects that need to get done before we can start the retrofit project. So the first one is the Anderson Dam Tunnel, which we have started, and that's what I'm going to focus on tonight, talking through what that is and what we've done so far. So you can see that the construction of that is looking like it's going to be ending right just in time to start the construction of the retrofit project. So I'll talk more about that in detail below. And sorry if I didn't point out, there's also some price tags here for each of these components. These are what's listed in our newest CIP, or capital improvement plan. The Coyote Perk Dam replacement project, this is also related to Anderson. This is on the Coyote Perk Dam facility on Coyote Creek near Metcalf Road. So we're putting in a new inflatable rubber dam there that will be give us some flexibility in how we can raise and lower that, and basically push of a button, which will be really nice, plus some really nice fish ladder improvements on there. So really nice little project. We'll be starting, the contract has gone out to the contractor. It's been given notice to proceed, and that's going to be starting here pretty soon, actually. I think the submittals and the work behind the scenes has started, and physical work will start this summer. So looking forward to see that one get completed. The next one here is the Coyote Creek Flood Management Measures Project. Similarly, we have a contractor selected, and we have construction starting this summer. So that's up in the urban area of San Jose on Coyote Creek, where that will be creating some flood walls and other improvements to pass the flows from the Anderson Dam Tunnel project once that's completed through that portion of Coyote Creek safely. So that's also got to be done before we start the retrofit project and start bypassing those flows, which I'll talk about a little bit more. The Cross Valley Pipeline extension here, this one is almost complete actually. We started construction last year in 2022, and there's just a few kind of last improvements that need to be done at the outfall in the Coyote Creek. But what that is a 7,000 foot long pipeline, about 36-inch diameter, that runs from our existing Cross Valley pipeline, which brings our imported water into San Jose through South County. And this extension, or it's kind of a branch, releases water into Coyote Creek, so we can improve our flows for fish as well as groundwater recharge in Coyote Creek. And that comes out right downstream of both your ponds. Should I just do this one again? Yeah. All right, here we go. I'm more used to this kind of microphone anyway. Okay, last one here, the chillers project. So this is an improvement that we're also making for flows into Coyote Creek. This is a refrigeration units that will be used to cool the water that's imported and released into Coyote Creek. So this will take the imported water that we receive and improve the flows. We had a long procurement process on getting those chillers units, which are really just refrigeration units. There's 3 of them, as well as the electrical components that go into that. There's been some delays in the supply chain. So we're looking at starting that construction. We're going to be awarding a contract late this year, but really the meat of the construction will be happening in spring of 2024 and completing that in time for summer of 2024. So that's the last component that needs to be completed physically before we get into the real heavy stuff at the dam. Okay, so the Anderson Dam Tunnel Project. So we like to call this stage 1 of the Anderson Dam Seismic Retrofit project for 2 reasons. First, it's the first part really relating to the dam and the retrofit project itself, but also it's the stage 1 of our diversion system that we need to pass flows from the reservoir out into Coyote Creek during construction. So a really important component of the overall project. So just really simply here, it's a temporary diversion system. You can see here in the green dashed line. This is Anderson Dam shown here in blue. And it's going to be about a 13-foot diameter pipe that will be able to move flows at about 2,000 CFS, which is 4 times what we can currently do through the existing intake and outlet system. So increase the flows we can move around the reservoir during construction. So here's the image I showed on the cover slide here, just going through some of the major components of the Anderson Dam tunnel. So you can see Anderson Dam is here, this blue marker with the reservoir behind it. I think you're all familiar with that. Spillway is up here. Down below here, we have Coyote Creek shown in orange, in this orange marker, flowing this way. And basically what the flows will do is come through the tunnel here and out into this diversion outlet structure, and then make their way through a channel here out into Coyote Creek. So that's really the main purpose of the project. We're also building a high-level outlet works drop shaft that will get incorporated into the Anderson Dam Seismic Retrofit project. It'll be our new emergency release system that'll kind of pass through the new tunnel up above. But we did build that during this part of the project because it does get incorporated. And then you can see the yellow line here is the tunnel alignment. We're building a small branch here that will become part of our future outlet works in the Anderson Dam Seismic Retrofit project. And the last part here is the lake tap. So this is kind of an interesting component. This last stretch of the tunnel gets completed with a micro tunnel boring machine, 8-foot diameter machine that will basically plunge right into the water with about 30 feet or so of head above it. So that's a pretty critical component here. So we're going to be coming in lower than the current level that we can currently achieve. So pretty fancy technology there to do that. So I'm going to click the button here and you're going to see the progress that we made on the tunneling. The shaft you can see is completed and the tunneling is past the shaft. We've completed about 440 feet of the tunnel so far. It's about a 1,700 foot long tunnel. So we made some good progress. We started on November 9th last year, and we're moving through it. It's not easy tunneling. It's pretty big tunnel. It's 24-foot diameter where we are now, and the ground conditions are a bit challenging, but we're making it through. So I'll share some photos and pictures here on this next slide. So I was just talking about the tunnel. We'll start here on the right. This is just looking out of the tunnel, about 100 feet or so in. When we first got started, just looking out, you can see the tunnel is supported with what we call steel sets. These structural steel members get installed every 3 to 5 feet, and then we apply shotcrete or spray applied concrete to these steel sets to form like a nice shell reinforced with that steel set to support the tunnel excavation. So as you can see here, I did say November 9th is when we started, and this is an old figure. We're about 440 feet in now of the tunnel. On the left here, you can see the diversion outlet structure construction. So we did quite a bit of work here on the portal, this sloping retaining wall around here, and then pretty massive excavation out here for the foundation of this diversion outlet structure. This is going to be a giant concrete box that will house some really large pipes and valves when we're all done. But what we had to do is excavate down about 15 to 20 feet to remove all the soil and some of the old fill that was kind of adjacent to Coyote Creek prior to the dam being built. So we had to make sure we had a nice stable foundation for that. So pretty large excavation there. That's all been completed. And actually, I think there's a poster back there that shows a really updated photo of what the diversion outlet structure looks like with some of the formwork for the foundation. So be sure to check that out. Okay, another photo here of the kind of the tunneling operation and what the face looks like. You know, this is rock here. It is relatively weak rock that we're excavating through using this machine called a road header. And what this fancy excavator can do is basically pull the material down through the bottom of it. There's some collecting arms and a conveyor belt and spit the material out the back. So we don't have to dig and then turn the machine all the way around to get the material out of the tunnel. So pretty nice high-tech piece of equipment there doing the tunnel excavation. And on the right here, you can see the high-level outlet works drop shaft under construction. This is looking down in the shaft. There's a 90-foot deep shaft excavation, which has been completed. Wrapped that up last December. And it's about a 23-foot diameter shaft there that will house the future high-level outlet works pipe. You can see on the left here, this is after the shaft excavation was completed, looking up and out of the shaft. So pretty good size piece of construction there. And on the right, you can see the beginning of the transition zone tunnel. So we reached the shaft and we continued on through this, what we call the transition zone, where that magenta leg I showed comes off for future use during the retrofit project. So you can see kind of the work going on here. So pretty big, size here. You can see this person standing here. This is 24 feet tall, pretty large tunnel equipment here. Okay, just wanted to share a little bit about another piece of the Anderson Dam tunnel project under the contract. We have the reservoir rim stability. So this is almost another project in itself. This is in the Holiday Lake Estates area here down below. And what we're showing here is the Hoot Owl Way landslide area, as well as the Boat Marina landslide area shown down below. So we've been monitoring these landslide areas since the drawdown, and actually before we did our drawdown initially in 2020, and watching how these slopes are moving. And we are still looking at completing a slope stabilization project here on the Boat Marina landslide that consists of quite a bit of grading as well as soil nails being installed to support that slope. Working with our contractor to get a price. There's been some design updates and really upgrading what that looks like. So we're working on that. On the Hoot Owl Way landslide, kind of a similar situation as we looked at the monitoring and added quite a bit of design features and quite a bit more construction. It started to look like it was going to be pretty hard to actually stabilize this landslide for perpetuity, as well as it became really, really expensive. So we looked into these property owners that own homes around here. There's I think 7 different property owners of 9 parcels total, and we started talking to them if they would be interested in selling. And actually, we've completed 6 of the acquisitions of these properties voluntarily, which has been great. And we're working on the 7th one as well. So no eminent domain needed there yet, so that's great. And we think that's really a win for everybody, to get people out of this area where there was some potential for damage to their homes by a pre-existing landslide before this reservoir was even built. Some would say that these homes should have been built there in the first place. So really happy to get those members of the public out of there safely and having them still get paid for their homes. So eventually what we'll do is we're looking to demolish those structures and kind of restore that area into sort of the natural landscape. Okay, so the last slide here on the Anderson Dam tunnel project, just going through the different project partners here. This photo shows quite a few of them. We're down here in the excavation for the diversion outlet structures. It was taken last year, but you can see the retaining wall, slope retaining wall that we built above it to support the slope above that excavation, as well as the tunnel portal where the outlet will come out. We've got, of course, ourselves, Valley Water, the owner. We have a project management consultant, Black and Beach, that's helping assist us and supplement our project management services. Our design consultant is AECOM, formerly known as URS in Oakland. We have a construction management consultant team with several different players here. A lot of these are heavy civil and underground specialty firms. So they've been a really big help in administering the construction contract and helping us with inspections and quality control and all that. So it's going pretty well. And of course, our contractor that's doing the construction is Flatiron West. And one of our main subcontractors on that with Flatiron is Drill Tech, Drilling Insurance, and they're doing all the tunneling and a lot of these shotcrete walls and things like that. So, and then lastly on here, we have our dam safety folks on the state side, the Division of Safety of Dams. And on the federal side, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. So we've got both state and federal dam safety oversight there. That's who a lot of these people are here in this photo. They're very interested in this project being done and watching it all along the way. So very good to have everybody working together on this project. We've been pretty happy with the team and the collaboration moving through this tunnel project. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about the Anderson Dam Seismic Retrofit project. So I just wanted to point out a couple of the main features here. There's kind of an engineering drawing overlaid on a satellite image here. You've got obviously the dam here shown in gold. You've got the Coyote Creek and the outlet system coming out here. Our north and south channel, we're doing some pretty significant improvements. Currently, the north channel doesn't flow through, but we are going to be restoring that as part of the project. We're putting a weir here to control the flows that pass through the north channel before they confluence back together just outside of the Live Oak Park. And you can see the south channel also, there's some improvements happening here with some new weirs and some flow controls there as well. Down below, you see the FERC hydroelectric facility. This is the reason we have the FERC involved in this project. We will be disconnecting that facility and decommissioning it as part of this project. So no more hydropower for Anderson Dam. We'll be replacing the spillway, but also extending the concrete through this currently unlined part of the channel right before it gets to the falls here. So there's a kind of waterfall. You've seen the photos, the aerial photos during the spills, you know what I'm talking about. So we'll be extending that concrete section there to give us some nice safe flows to pass through in the event that the reservoir does spill. And then also want to point out down here the Basalt Hill Borrow area. This was the original borrow area that kind of created the sort of cove that the existing parking lot is in at Anderson. We're going to be extending that back in deeper in that same borrow area, cutting into that hillside and borrowing a lot of that good rock to build the new Anderson Dam. But the bonus there is we'll also be extending the parking lots. There'll be more parking for boats and other public recreation purposes. So nice bonus there, as well as this road. You probably can't really tell here, but this isn't exactly what the existing road looks like. We'll be improving the access road of Coyote Road up to the top of the dam parking area, adding some retaining walls and widening that, repaving it, and adjusting the alignment. So pretty nice upgrade feature there too from the recreation standpoint. Okay, so what I really wanted to tell you all about is the construction sequence of the dam embankment, because this is really a critical component of this project. It is why it's going to take so long, because people ask that question a lot, why this project will take so long. They built the original dam in 1 year, why can't we build it in 1 year? Well, you know, things have changed. There's a lot more safety concerns. There's a lot more homes downstream that weren't there before, and a lot of other factors to make sure we build this thing right the second time. So here you see what the kind of before the FERC order looked like. We had a DSOD restriction at elevation 592. So we were just below where we could go to 100% shown there, just for reference what that looks like. And then this is where we're at now. So we're restricted down to this lower elevation through the FERC order for dam safety. So that's kind of what the existing dam looks like. So then when I get into this next slide here, this shows the year 1 of construction. We'll be lowering it down even more through our Anderson Dam tunnel, our new stage 1 diversion system. So taking it down a little more, and we'll start working on all our haul roads and stockpile areas and dredging out some of the sediment that will be left behind in this portion of the reservoir. So that'll be a lot of prep work during the first year. So then year 2 is where we really start the dam work. So what we're going to do is take down kind of this top section of the dam you can see here missing. And so we'll remove that, excavate all that out, store it to be used later. And then when winter time comes, we just let this sit. And this acts as basically our protection from any downstream flooding. So if the reservoir does fill up, we do still have a dam here, because this little coffer dam isn't made to handle winter flows. This is made to handle just summer flows and flows that happen maybe in late spring or early fall to divert around. But during the winter, there won't be much work going on, because we're just going to be watching the storms pass. Okay, so let me get into year 3. We take the dam down even more. So we take it down to this level here. This is elevation 556. So taking out almost 100 feet of the dam at this point in height. And so that's what that looks like. And then as we prepare for year 4, we'll be doing some more of the diversion work. We'll have actually a larger diversion capacity. We'll be putting a new section in the diversion to increase how much water we can move during this time. And then we'll be moving into the super critical year is year 4. And this is the one that we're all looking at really carefully, because in one summer, we're going to be taking the dam down from this height here to this little remnant piece of the core, and then building it back up all in one year. And this is what the new dam looks like with these different color zones here. So that's really the critical years, our 4th year of construction, making sure that we have all the time we need to take down the dam and build it back up all in one summer to this height, and then let it sit again for the winter. And then once we get through that, year 5, we start building the dam back up. We do quite a bit of embankment work on the upstream and downstream sides. And then in year 6, we top it off and bring it back up to the top here. So that's kind of the sequence going through those years of construction. And then here you can see what the final configuration looks like here. We'll be able to take it right back up to our 100% level of the spillway crest. And we're also going to be raising the elevation by about 8 feet of the dam, but that doesn't increase our reservoir capacity. That only just gives us a little added factor of safety for the amount of freeboard space above the highest point of the spillway. So this is just shown below what we have prior to the FERC order, what the existing dam looked like, and what we'll have when we're done. So hope that all makes sense. Took me a while to understand. Okay, so last slide here on the retrofit project. Just wanted to go through some of the highlights of what we're going to get out of this project we've been working on so long. So, of course, the #1 goal here is to have a safe dam. So we'll be meeting all the current dam safety standards, which have changed over the design life of this project itself, and they're ever changing, but we'll be meeting all of those, if not exceeding them. So really excited to have that, which gives us a reliable local water supply. So we'll be able to use the dam to 100% and be able to move water out of it and into it for South County and North County all the way through. So as Chris mentioned, it is a hub of our system, and we'll be really happy to have that back online. On the environmental side, we also have the Fish and Aquatic Habitat Collaborative Effort, or FACE, that we'll be able to meet those operations once we have the dam restored and have the different outlet features that we are installing during the retrofit project. And so we're really going to be excited to meet those needs and work through with the environmental agencies on the FACE. And then the recreation components. You know, I know probably a lot of you in this room, if you're Morgan Hill residents, are really looking forward to getting back out there and boating and fishing and hiking in the Anderson Dam reservoir area. So that's going to be restored and improved, as I mentioned before. With we're actually going to have an improved entrance, which I didn't mention before, but down at Cochrane Road, there's going to be some improvements you'll see to line up the boats and be able to get in and inspect it and get into the parking area and go have some fun on the water. So really looking forward to having that all completed. And so you can, mark your calendars. We're looking at 2032 to have this all done. So we're really looking forward to having this project completed as well. All right, so I think that brings us to the question period.
Before Ryan starts the question and answer period, I just want to say that I was supposed to tell anyone on Zoom to use either the raise hand feature or put your question in the Q&A feature. Generally, if your question is in chat, it might get lost. So if you did put a question in chat, please put it in the Q&A or raise your hand. Also want to give a shout out to Dustin Weber from Representative Zoe Lofgren's office, Diane from Jimmy Panetta's office, and 76 attendees that we had on Zoom. We've dropped to 74 at this point, so Ryan lost 2 people. I don't think I ever did when I was giving the presentation, but that's a lesson learned from me. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get to Ryan for Q&A. And we do have other staff here in case there are any questions that Ryan can't answer. So we'll hopefully give you everything you could need to know and more.
Okay, I hope these are gonna be quick answers, because I have a few.
Yes and no
The
questions on that.
spillway, why is it still needed if we have this huge tunnel and we have this big pipe in the middle of the reservoir? Why do we still need a spillway? And even if we extend it, it's still gonna go over the falls. And that could cause some undermining of the soil right under the falls. That's one question. The second question is, are we gonna be screening this tunnel so that bigger fish and debris and stuff doesn't get in there? Or are screens out of the question? That's all for now.
Okay, yeah, so with the spillway, yeah, we do still need to have an emergency spillway. So the way I always kind of look at it is like in your bathtub, right? If you start filling it up, you know, you have a drain there that you can always open, but say the drain gets clogged and you walk away, you know, you want to overflow it in your house, right? So it has to be there, but we don't really intend to ever, you know, use it on purpose. We'd rather use the control outlet system that we will have to control releases to prevent spilling. So kind of finding that balance and keeping it just below would be ideal. But in the event that you have a large storm and, you know, things can't get released fast enough, it could spill, but we don't intend to. Yeah, part of the spillway improvements, so like you mentioned, we are improving how that water will be conveyed over the falls and looking at, you know, what could happen there. It's already been pretty eroded. There's not much else that can happen to it. It's pretty much bare rock now. So there won't be too much change to that, but there are, like I mentioned, also some improvements to that north channel that the spillway does exit into. And so there will be some improvements to how that water gets conveyed from the falls into the main stem of Coyote Creek. On your question on the screens, there are trash racks that will be put on our intakes. So basically big metal slats to keep debris out. They are only about 6 inches at the smallest diameter. They're kind of like large slots. So, you know, technically fish and things like that could still make it through, but as far as debris, yeah, we definitely don't want to get debris in our pipes and have things get clogged up.
So the big fish will stay in the lake.
That's right. Yeah. Did you have another question?
I'm interested in the volume of water in Coyote Creek, either steady state or pulse flows from your Cross Valley connection and your chiller project. As you may know, County Parks, Coyote Creek Trail parallels the creek, but in 2 instances between Bailey and Metcalf, it actually drops into the creek, comes out on the other side. And when we have heavy rains, there's enough water in the creek that those crossing points go underwater and that segment of the trail is unusable. So what's your forecast of your flows in with respect to those 2 crossing points?
Yeah, it's difficult to, you know, spit out one answer of what our flow target is, but really the target is to keep the creek wet and keep that cold water management zone for the fish, and then not get it, you know, too full and too much flow coming through, like you said, to, you know, keep on the trails and that kind of thing. So kind of find that balance for operations. When it comes to storms, there's not really a whole lot we can do. Of course, we probably taper off our releases just to not contribute to higher flows than needed. But yeah, it's a pretty intricate kind of flow curve that we use to determine how much we'll be releasing each of those. Another question, Jim?
Yeah.
So you showed pictures of a tunnel there, which is a circular cross section in the picture. So I assume they're using a rather conventional tunneling machine to do this. And then part of the picture, it looks like they already had concrete lining around the tunnel, all of which is conventional thing, but you haven't described how they're doing it or show any details of the picture of how they get the concrete in, whether they use a slip form to fill it in behind the tunneling machine, or just how it is done. And the other question is, since their tunnel is progressing now, I would expect, normally there would be a steady flow of trucks carrying all the stuff that comes out of the dirt and the rock that was in where the tunnel is now. It's just air, but there's no, I don't see trucks driving around. And what's happening there.
Sure.
And the third question
Oh,
is.
I don't know if I can break my head, but I'll try.
And the shaft, but what the picture was not the shaft, it's a hole that probably a shaft's gonna go in. And they haven't mentioned, there has to be a valve in there, or the water would flow through the tunnel when you don't want it to flow through the tunnel. And none of these have been described yet.
Okay, so let me start with your first question on the tunnel and kind of the process. So the way we look at that is there's basically two passes to build the tunnel. The initial lining, which is what supports the excavation, and the final lining, which would be our reinforced concrete, like you mentioned, like a slip liner to build that out. So what we do first is we excavate the tunnel all the way to the end, and then we build the final lining on our way back out to install all that reinforced concrete to give us our finished tunnel product. So it's kind of a two-pass system. Hopefully that answers your question, but with the initial lining, we are using shotcrete or spray applied concrete along with the steel sets that are installed incrementally along to support the excavation. And then, like I mentioned, the final lining will be a reinforced concrete, 2 foot thick concrete with a lot of rebar in it to support the tunnel long term. Second question was,
what kind of equipment are you using to dig this tunnel line?
oh, so I did, yeah, that wasn't the question, but yeah, it is conventionally mined using a road header or a specialized tunneling excavation machine, not a boring machine, but basically excavating it out and conventionally mining it and using that conveyor system that comes out the back of the road header to load up the trucks. And I think that was your question, is what's happening to all that material. So we have our main stockpile right now is at the parking lot at the top of Anderson Dam. So we're taking that material out of the tunnel and the shaft and our entire portal excavation and stockpiling up there in the parking lot area. We'll be using that in the retrofit project to build the coffer dam and some of the haul roads. That's the first kind of source we'll be using as we develop the rest of the project. And now I can't remember your third question. Oh, the shaft. So yeah, the shaft excavation, yeah, it's just a giant hole right now. But basically it's out in the open. They did put a cover on it, but it could get some rain into it at times, but there's a collar at the top, so you're not going to have water flowing into it. It's only the rain that can reach that kind of opening. But what in the future, we'll be putting a 13-foot diameter steel pipe that'll be encased in concrete and then making an elbow at the top of that shaft and then tying into our outlet works and intake system within the reservoir. What's that?
The valves.
Okay, so during the tunnel project, the valves will be at the outlet. So there's 2 different valves that will be in the outlet structure. The 13-foot diameter pipe comes in and splits into 2 11-foot diameter pipes, and that's what will be used to control the discharges into Coyote Creek. In the retrofit project, we add a valve upstream as well, so we can cut off that water and keep the tunnel and pipe dry until we need it.
Thanks, Ryan. We've got one question right here.
My question has to do with the impact you're having on Coyote Creek. You talked about this recreation, but the trail itself is basically unusable. And it's been that way for like 4 months now because you have to release water to get down below 3%, down below 4%. So that's going to go on for months and months, but all you seem to be caring about is you just somebody puts up signs and say, you have to take a detour, and the detour just isn't appropriate for most of the users of that trail. So, and going forward, the whole 7 years, that's going to be a continuing thing, because just the output of that 2-foot pipe is able to totally flood those sections that the other gentleman just spoke about at Bailey and near Coyote Ranch. If with the 24-foot tunnel outlet, there's whole sections of it that are just going to be inundated. But I don't hear anybody taking ownership for fixing that. It's a very popular recreation trail, and nobody, you point fingers to Parks and Rec, and they point fingers back at you. Somebody's got to own that, and I think it's you. It's your water that's flooding.
Yeah, so it's hard to remember that we're in an emergency, even when there's dry weather like this. So we've been ordered to do this by the federal Energy Regulatory Commission that has jurisdiction over dam safety, because there is a tremendous safety hazard. So we have to release that water as fast as we can. And yeah, there is impacts to some of the trails that were built at very low levels. You look at what the flood levels are.
But why don't we see this as one of the things that's being addressed? You're addressing the Ogier ponds, that's not a priority for anybody that uses the trail. Yeah, we want to be able to go through on the trail, and it's going to get flooded in all sorts of places. More places up by the golf course are just going to be underwater.
Yeah, we could get into more detail in a future public presentation about what those impacts are and look into that more. But that is something we're working closely with county parks on. We're not pointing fingers at them for building the trails low and near the creek. And I don't think they're pointing the finger at us. But, I mean, maybe they are because that's what the flows are. But there's nothing we can do about that really at this time. But we are working closely with them and doing the best we can. We understand the impacts of the recreation facilities there.
But the 2 points where it's flooded and it's flooded forever with just the 2-foot pipe outlet when it's going full blast.
Yeah, I mean,
Why hasn't that been addressed in anything?
we're talking to county parks about that, and there is opportunity to. I mean, those trails basically will need to be rerouted to higher ground. I mean, that's really the only solution. I mean, there's nothing else we can do. So that's a potential opportunity that we're discussing.
I'm gonna pretend I'm Trevor Varela right now. Basically, when the questions get hot and heavy and Ryan needs a little breather, I'll step in just to say that the existing condition, what we're talking about is the existing outlet, right? And the capacity through the existing outlet. Our normal operation for Anderson in times of heavy flows means those trails do get inundated. We're doing our best to move the project forward and give everyone access to the trails when it's safe. But we've just had 3 years drought when the trails would have been accessible. And then we got the torrential downpour from this year. And now the reservoir went up to about 52%. So we're under federal mandate to keep it around 3.5%. So that valve has to stay wide open. I think Ryan had basically referenced that. It's an emergency situation. We don't have a choice for that. Regardless, even if we did, let's say we're post-construction and our reservoir is completely full. If we have a wet year, we do release through the outlet for recharge. Those trails do get inundated. That's kind of the normal operation of the facility. If anything, the impacts that you're seeing right now will probably be over a less amount of time than what our normal operation would be, because we wouldn't be releasing it 450 cubic feet per second in a normal operation. We kind of be saving some of that water for summer and then releasing it, but we would still be inundating those trails because I think they get inundated at about 60 cubic feet per second. Sarah Perriman may have some additional information. If she doesn't, she can just shake her head no, but just it's not his field of expertise.
I don't speak for parks, but I'm just working with county parks, and I think the challenge is that it is about 60 CFS when they get flooded. And so that's a pretty low bar, right? Our normal operations they sometimes go up to 65 CFS to maintain our groundwater recharge. So even under normal situations when we're not under a FERC order to drain as fast as possible, these trail closures happen routinely. So there is kind of a design flaw that happened because the dam and the outlets and Coyote Creek were, built in 1950, and I think the trail and all the parks came a lot later. Yes, it was poorly planned, but we are still working with county parks to try to address these things because we know that's important.
Yeah, and I'll just add that we're expecting the flows to recede in about a month. So by the end of June, you should see the flows recede significantly. We get back down to our dead pool level.
If you take it over the place, I won't take it away, I promise, but I don't want to have 15 different people hold it and then hold it myself.
In large projects, I've been involved in, we have slides like this, but we also have a risk table. This all the risks and probability, another column is the probability that this will occur.
Yeah. Holding it too far away.
This is a challenging question. And so I want, with these slides and the future presentations, I'd like to see a table like that and then a column of mitigation strategy. And one risk was mentioned here, that by having to let out some of the trails get In suburbs, are not accessible. But the other part of that is that, I'm wondering with some of the risks, that's going to cause delays and increased costs. I think the costs from the original projection have doubled, right, Scott? And the timeline has been extended, and that happens in projects. But I think it's important to keep that, be very transparent about that.
Okay, well, very timely question on the risk. We had a risk workshop for 3 hours today at the construction site in the trailers and talked through all the risks and updated. We've done this many times before. Updated the probability, the severity, what the impacts to the cost of the schedule could be facing these risks. And we went through a major update. Contractor was there with us, the designer, construction manager. So we do have that data. I'm happy to share what some of those major risks are in a future presentation. Typically, there's definitely tunneling risks. There's a lot of different risks with operations, and there's a whole different bunch of categories that there are different risks associated. And thank you for your comment on the schedule and the costs. Yes, that always seems to be the trend. Things take longer and cost more as we move through. But we are really excited that we are doing work now. So I guess that's the silver lining.
So if I'm reading your slide correctly, the soonest that you would allow water to accumulate behind the dam and the dam to refill is 2032. And I seem to recall recently that Valley Water told me that they could refill like a year or so sooner, and there would just be cleanup work that's not associated with the safety of the dam, being able to store that. And then the second question is the weather a risk for this project anyway? If there really, it seems like you're not doing construction during certain winter periods. Is the weather in any way something that could cause this thing to extend beyond 2032 if we had really unfortunate weather?
Yes, to that question, I'll elaborate there a little bit more after. But yeah, you're right. This actually does say 2031, where we'll have the dam back up to its level. But as you mentioned, you're right. In 2032 is when we expect to have the facility back open to the public as far as recreational public access. But we will be able to start filling after the summer season of 2030. So this is kind of just showing that as well. So 6 years of construction plus a final year of restoration and other activities. Yes, weather is definitely a big concern. It'll be difficult if we get like early storms in the winter, like we get October and November rains, because we're still going to be working on these interim dam and maintenance starting in the summer and trying to get this work done. And that will be impacted. That's why we don't plan to do any work over the winter season, because basically what we do is we get to this point and we winterize the site. We seal everything up. We create a spillway that will convey water if the water is to reach, over the top of this interim dam. And a lot of other features to keep the site all protected during the winter. But if there are early storms or even late storms in the late spring, that could affect our production.
And Ryan, so this was a pretty record winter, and it was completely at dead pool, and it got to 52%. So if we had a winter like we just had and it was wet, it was dry to start with, it would be at 50% capacity. So that's just a frame of reference, right?
Yeah, I think it actually reached 56%, I think was the peak. Yeah.
What you've been calling is the shaft, the 90-foot deep shaft. Is that what we would call conventionally the glory hole?
No, that's the shaft's actually outside of the dam. It's not inside the reservoir area. So that'll be connected to kind of a standard concrete intake within the reservoir and work through that pipe system, then drop through the drop shaft and out through the island while it works. It's a pretty complicated sort of web of how what we're building now gets incorporated into the retrofit project. Like the new diversion outlet structure will only be our emergency outlet. Once we have the retrofit project done, we'll be using a separate outlet works section.
So at the bottom of the 90-foot shaft, I'm picturing a 90-foot high waterfall. Is there energy dispersal?
It's within a 13-foot diameter pipe, so there's an elbow at the top and an elbow at the bottom. So basically the water is all contained within the steel pipe that's encased in reinforced concrete. Thank you.
Click in
Thank you, Peter. Nice to see you, Peter.
Yes. I saw on the poster on the back that you're working round the clock on the outflow pipe. Will you be also working round the clock in the summer on this dam? That's my first question. And the second is I'd like an update on the CEQA report, because I have seen now these wild boar and their piglets. They reproduce every 4 months and they're still running around.
Okay, yeah, so the plan there will be extended work hours, especially in the summer, to make sure we can complete these different interim dams as we move through the project. Currently, the tunneling is going around the clock. We have night shifts happening now. So that is already happening. 6 days a week, they do work on Saturdays as well, typically not at night. But yeah, during the dam, they will be allowed to work extended hours to make sure we can complete these really critical activities each year.
So what does round the clock mean when they advertise on the poster? What actual hours is that?
24 hours is the window. Yeah, so right now they're basically working 2 12-hour shifts most nights. And it varies depending on the contractors, activities and what they're doing, but essentially that is what it is now. And then with the draft EIR, I did mention the schedule, I believe, is looking at late July. I'm not familiar with how the pigs are being addressed in the draft EIR. I don't know if anyone here has any answers or other information to weigh in on there.
We do, we've done a couple of meetings, and we do have some information about piglets in the draft.
And the brown pig.
Is that for everybody else?
Piglets are included in the draft EIR, or well, not just piglets, but wild boar and some of the challenges that they are presenting to this community are included as a discussion in the draft EIR.
So can we have some information of what's in the draft?
Yeah, it will be available in July for everybody to review and comment on it.
And how many pages is that going to be? The whole thing?
But I actually don't know.
Ballpark?
A lot.
A lot. This will be a voluminous document.
Do a word search, okay.
Yeah, you're gonna want to do the word search.
Are there any plans for dredging the existing lake bottom? It must be 10 feet of silt in there to increase the capacity of the water in the reservoir.
Yeah, there is a dredging planned actually during the tunnel project around the new intake area. And then during the retrofit project, will be a little bit more extensive dredging to try to capture a lot of that silt and sediment before it makes its way out to outlet into the Coyote Creek. So that is definitely part of it. Not really the purpose isn't really to increase the capacity of the reservoir per se, but really for water quality.
These are great questions. We do a couple more in the room, then we're gonna go to Zoom. So I'm just giving Zay a heads up that I'll come over there, but we've got a question.
Question about the impact that it's having. I'm kind of surprised that I haven't heard anybody mention the truck traffic. It's just incredible. And at some days, it's 300 or 400 runs each way for the day. These trucks weigh 50, 60,000 pounds that are rumbling down Cochrane. And my main question is, they're starting at 4 a.m. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but it is unbelievable, the disruption that's causing. And I would hope there would be a little bit better transparency about how many more thousands we're going to have, not only for the outlet tunnel, when the retrofit. I can just imagine when they take the dirt out. But my main question is, can we get a better job of communicating to us when this is going to occur? I see that it gets posted that day, that at 4 a.m. that morning, these trucks are going to be rumbling through. Obviously, you guys have a very well laid out plan. You know much further in advance that that's going to be happening. I would appreciate it, and I think the community would all along Cochrane, it's not just me, all along Cochrane, when these trucks that weigh 50, 60,000 fully loaded cement trucks rumbling at 30, 40 miles an hour are going to be rumbling through at 4 a.m. And why are they rumbling at 4 a.m.?
I'll start with why. So these are large concrete pours, thousands of yards, like you mentioned, many concrete trucks. And to reduce the amount of time these trucks are sitting in traffic is one reason, as well as the availability of the materials at the plant during that time. Basically, we can have the plant exclusively making the material for the project, which helps optimize how that's used. And also, for cooler temperatures during concrete placements, when it gets really hot, especially during the summer months, you can run into issues with cracking and other things like that. So, and as far as I know, we've released those notices about the early work days in advance of when that work will happen. And we don't know about it months in advance, but we know about it, a week or so in advance, and we do get those communications out. I don't know that that's ever happened day of. I'm not aware of that.
Still find it hard to believe that you wouldn't know weeks in advance, especially if you're saying the magnitude of the materials that you need. And it seems to me that the 4 o'clock, you guys are the primary client of this cement company. I would think that they would accommodate you if you at least started at 7 a.m., which is a reasonable time. That doesn't make any sense. Why they're calling the shots and telling you that it's got to be at 4 a.m. instead of you being in control and being a huge client of theirs, that they should be able to accommodate you. And that doesn't make any sense why you're having to start at 4 a.m. And then to speak to the temperature, you started these back in November and December. And so the temperature was not an issue. And again, I don't know if the community knows, but literally there was one day, I estimated there's 350, 400 truck runs from 4 a.m. to 5 p.m. constantly. So that's each way. So that's a total of 750 to 60,000 pound trucks going down Cochrane, causing, potentially traffic jams. And I know there's other issues going on with the city that we're concerned about traffic. This is overwhelming. And I'm not against it at all. I'm totally for it. But it just seems that it should at least make it on the slide. So
Yeah, one other thing that you did mention about the retrofit project and hauling the earth materials on and off the site, we are trying to do as much of that work within the reservoir, within the project area itself, so we don't have as many truck trips as you would if we were bringing the material in. So there will be material like concrete and sand and quarry materials that will have to be brought in and imported through trucking, but most of the embankment work will be done through materials and borrow sources on site. So it's something we've taken very seriously, and it will be described in the draft EIR as well.
I'm going to tag in one more time. Just as a reminder, there are several construction projects in the area that are not Anderson Dam. So our concrete pours do not occur daily most times, maybe once or twice a week, with the notice that Ryan has basically alluded to. There are some developments for some new houses, Toll Brothers. There is work on Upper Yagas, which is a Valley Water project that may be creating some truck traffic as well. There is just general work in the area, and the city was doing some additional work as well. I can almost guarantee that our project has not produced 400 truck trips in a day, not specifically just us. Generally speaking, in talking to Flatiron, the concrete trucks are about 30. So there are
30 per day.
Yeah, about 30 for each pour.
Honestly, that's absurd to even say. There's 30 in an hour or something. I'm sorry, that is. And you don't have the facts, but I'm not sure why you would say that. When just a couple of days ago, in 1 hour, I counted 39 truck runs going right by. So that's just.
As I said, the trucks might be from other projects that are in here.
It's the trucks, the Warren cement trucks. Pretty obvious they're coming from the dam. So they're not going to construction going on. I just want to be transparent. Again, I'm not against it, but again, right now I'm concerned because 30 a day is just absurd. You know that.
I'm sorry that you are not believing the answer I provided. That is the information I got from our contractor. We can definitely look into it in the future, but at this point, we're doing our best to minimize the amount of traffic that is present during rush hour, because that will also impact the duration that trucks are on the road.
This is a great time to mention that Tony Mercado is our community liaison for this project, and his information is on the project shell as well. And I give my card to John, so we'll follow up absolutely and do an even better job. Like what's going on? Another question.
The days of yesterday, I'm talking about the early 2000s. Remember on this dam, got a water plant in ST, and Mountain Valley. Was a rainy season with a county watershed, and the drainage on that, we were always been told to not let the dam go over 70%. It was basically on the flood control, we try to stay ahead of things and change our source from Del Valle to this dam, which had a good quality water, and pull maybe 40, 50 million gallons a day from there. And then could fine tune it with a drain valve there and keep it at like 70%. And that way we aren't wasting, a precious resource of water, and it's a good source water. And we could keep anything from spilling. Is that gonna still remain a priority and keep the dam from spilling and switch that source water or raw water to one of the water plants?
Yeah, I think that we'll aim to achieve that similarly. But like I mentioned earlier, we do have more capacity to control flows if we do start filling up. But I think you're talking about reserving the water in Anderson because it's good quality water. So yeah, I think we'll be doing that as much as possible. The operations dictate.
Thank you. Are you going to clean out Coyote Creek going down from the dam towards San Jose, because it is filthy and the water won't flow very easily going down there?
Yeah, there's several portions of Coyote Creek where have a lot of debris and trash and things like that, and we will be addressing those through our stream maintenance program.
We're going to go to a couple of our Zoom questions. We've got 80 people on Zoom.
All right, the first question is, what are chillers?
Chillers are refrigeration units that water go into and get basically cooled and released. So essentially it's cooling the water. I'm not sure how many degrees, but basically making an optimal temperature for fish.
We have a few questions related to hydroelectricity. Has any thought been given to installing a low head hydro turbine? It seems like we are not putting the water releases going on now to work.
Yeah, the existing hydro facility hasn't been used in quite some time. Has a pretty low capacity. I think it's less than 1 megawatt, which is pretty small, and it's been pretty inefficient. So hasn't been used in quite some time, and Valley Water is interested in expanding that capacity.
So that's the reason for why no hydroelectric. Okay. Next question was related to the trail. Is would it be an estimate for it to be fully open? I know you had answered that earlier.
The Anderson.
No, the Coyote Creek trail.
The Coyote Creek trails. I mentioned that the releases should recede in about a month, towards the end of June, and so you'll see that the water levels of Coyote Creek dropped to a more normal level than we're used to seeing in the summer months.
Would Anderson have spilled this year if it hadn't been drained? How long will it take to drain it again?
I'd say yes. We actually received more rainfall this year than we did in 2017 when it did spill. And I think we started around 40% or so in 2017, and obviously it spilled then. So this year we filled up to 56% from 3. So yeah, I do believe we would have likely spilled this year had we been operating under our older DSOD restriction rather than the current.
Please explain the funding situation for the retrofit project.
I'll ask Chris Hakes to weigh in on that.
Please explain the funding situation for the retrofit project. We're actually going to toss that to someone who's online for Valley Water, to Rachel Gibson, our Chief of External Affairs. I believe she has some information about the funding she wants to share.
All right, hopefully folks can hear me. Good evening, everyone. Rachel Gibson, I'm the Chief of External Affairs for Valley Water. So in terms of funding for Anderson, obviously some of it is being funded by ratepayers through the water charges that we levy. Additionally, we did secure a substantial loan under the Water Infrastructure Finance Act. It's commonly called WIFIA. In fact, it was the 100th loan that the EPA had administered. So that is also going to fund a big chunk of Anderson to the tune of, I want to say, $767 million. The benefit of that is it is an extremely low cost loan. So even though it is a loan, it does have to be paid back. The interest rates are in the single digits, and I mean low single digits. So that's a bit of good news as well. Then in addition to that, of course, we're pursuing every dime of state and federal funding that we can secure. And we are engaging in robust advocacy and aggressive advocacy with our federal elected officials, with the federal agencies that can fund us, like EPA and others, as well as at the state level too. So we're pursuing the money for Anderson through the state budget process, as well as potentially through next year's water bond. There are talks underway at the state level for a big water bond that would fund not just projects like this, but other projects such as water recycling, desalination, et cetera. So it's a big water bond that is going to hit, I think, the November ballot, and things are being worked on right now at the state legislature. So we're talking with all the right folks at the state level to try to influence that so that we can try to procure even more money for Anderson through that avenue as well. Hopefully that answers the question. I'm happy to answer any more.
Thank you, Rachel. Next question. Will the melting of the record level snowpack in the mountains pose a flood risk to this specific project?
No. There's no connection.
What are the implications to the surrounding land around the lake, specifically the homes, when water levels rise and lower with storms such as what we had this year?
Yeah, I did have a slide. I talked a little bit about the rim stability and the movements that have been tracked over the years around the reservoir. Sure. There we go. Yeah. So I did talk about the Hudala Way and the boat marina landslide areas. Two of the areas that have been known for quite a while to be moving. Now I can't remember exactly what the question was. Is there something else that it needed to share? Right. So these ground movements are activated by water and drying. So when the water basically infiltrates into the ground and then dries out, there's movements associated as the slopes kind of slowly move downhill. So that's kind of how they work. And we've been monitoring these since we did the drawdown starting back in 2020, and then looking at how they were affected in 2021, as well as during this current year. And we've been monitoring the movements. There hasn't been anything too drastic. We think a lot of the movement that we've seen was really just associated with the rainfall, kind of the superficial movements and erosion that happened from the rain coming through, and not so much the reservoir level. But it's something we're actively monitoring. There's a couple other locations, one near the dam that we're also watching pretty closely. And yeah, we're seeing that, you know, as expected, what we would think would happen during these kind of filling and draining events.
What materials will be used for the dam's new core?
So the core will be predominantly a clay material, so that it's not as permeable as a rock material, so that the water can't flow from the reservoir through the dam. So there's several areas. The reservoir area we'll be using as borrowed material for the clay core, as well as the existing clay core. A lot of that material will be reused.
What specifically will be different in the dam to provide seismic safety?
So the current dam has a liquefaction potential. So there's basically granular materials that they don't have a lot of clay and stuff binding them together. So when they're saturated under seismic shaking, they kind of turn into jello. So we'll be installing materials and doing really careful quality control on what those materials look like as their particle size, and putting those in very carefully to make sure we don't have that liquefaction potential of the new dam.
What kind of improvements are planned for Cochrane Road? There are a number of safety issues for cars, pedestrians, particularly near the current outlets.
We're still looking at that carefully. We do anticipate there will be improvements to Cochrane Road, including some widening. And we'll be working very close to Cochrane Road on the dam itself. As you can see, if you drive by there, the dam goes right up, almost right up next to Cochrane Road. So we'll be doing some support of Cochrane Road during construction, and we do the restoration. We'll be looking at ways to make that a safer corridor to drive through. Also, there will be a new access for Valley Water to access the outlet area. That'll be, I guess, east on Cochrane Road. I'm sorry, west on Cochrane Road, basically before you get to the site. It doesn't exist now. to be able to have a safe access in and out for Valley Water purposes.
What is the Deadpool elevation and is that changing?
The Deadpool elevation is about 490 feet. If you're looking at the information online through our automated system, it's something like 487.2 is the Deadpool elevation. The new Deadpool elevation, when the dam is complete, will be lower because we are putting in some new intakes at lower levels. And I believe those are around 465, so they'll be about 20 feet lower. So
I think we have the same points, so it's 488. Same location. So we'll still have that.
okay, well, I was thinking, yeah, on the diversion system, we'll have that lower intake. But yeah, you're right. When the retrofit project is completed, basically the intake levels will match what we have in our current 3 intake sloping system.
Question, have we found anything unusual or unexpected after the water level was lowered in the reservoir?
None that I'm aware of. I don't think we've seen anything unusual or unexpected, but it was sad to see. I heard that a Thule elk was found in the reservoir, but I don't think that was related. But that was really the only unusual thing I could think of. Heard.
Found pigs. Lots of them.
Next question, what will the high water elevation be when the reservoir is full? And how does that compare to the dam height?
So I have a slide on that too. See if I can jump to it relatively quickly. Let's see here. Last slide. Essentially, the new reservoir elevation will be the same as the current reservoir elevation, so that doesn't change. But the dam will be a little bit taller, just to give us a little bit more factor of safety for any overtopping issues that we could have in the future. So it is elevation 627.9. That's what the current spillway crest is, and that will be with the new spillway crest. Also, it will be matching the reservoir elevation and therefore the reservoir volume.
In a dream world of resources, what would you need to make this project finish 2 years early?
The dream world of resources. Geez, that's a good question. You know, as I went through the construction sequencing, I guess there's not really a whole lot we can do to safely take this dam down and bring it back up any faster on the construction. But I think getting to construction, there's definitely some things that could go faster, is working through a lot of the design and permitting issues and working with the environmental agencies. But I mean, all that stuff is necessary. We take it seriously to make sure we have a safe dam as well as an environmentally responsible facility. So, ideally we could start faster, but I don't think that construction could really go any quicker unless we had, we could guarantee there would be years of dry weather.
Where will all the old fill material go?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yes, where will all the old fill material go?
So we're going to reuse as much of the existing dam as we can, but what's left over, what gets screened out that won't be usable, will be placed, compacted into the reservoir itself. So in the future, it'll be underwater under the reservoir.
How powerful of an earthquake will the new dam sustain?
That's a good question. Off the top of my head, I think it's 7.2 was the maximum. It is.
Let's see here. What measures are being taken to protect against catastrophic flooding if there's a large earthquake on the Calaveras Fault? The damages to Coyote Dam and Anderson Dam has been excavated to the maximum extent.
Well, I think that's really kind of ties into the whole purpose of the project, where you're talking about a during construction catastrophic earthquake that damages Coyote Dam. That holds 20,000 acre feet when it's full. So I think we'll have the capacity to maintain that amount of volume that would come out of that if it were to happen during the winter. If it happened during the summer, I think we'd have probably a big construction issue, but I don't see that causing any major widespread flooding downstream.
Thank you for the funding information. But how do we make sure the costs of construction don't hugely increase as often happens?
we're very consciously doing our best to keep that under control through our contractor selection process and our design process, as well as looking at other funding and grant opportunities, as Rachel mentioned.
I think this next question is probably related to the homes on Hoot. What about the homes that are not on Hoot?
So the homes on Hoot are the ones that we see have been, affected by the movements of the reservoir rim. They're very, very close. They're on the bank, basically of the reservoir. And so that's where we're seeing movement happen. The other homes in the Holiday Lake Estates area, we're not seeing any movement happening, which we are also closely monitoring through various systems.
This question, but again, related to hydropower. Question, the gentleman did not hear why the hydropower is not going to be included.
It's basically cost prohibitive in the size we have now. So it's not something we want to entertain further. Also, this is my general opinion, but we're not really in the business of power. That's our only hydropower facility that we have throughout the entire system. And it's just not really something that we're interested in continuing on with.
Does it for some questions? Let's get more.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you for everyone on Zoom. We have a few questions that were sent in ahead of the meeting that we wanted to make sure to cover quickly. So this is the lightning round. All right. Quickly, that's my cue. Okay, so these questions, the following are related to weather and also water storage. What percentage full right now is Anderson currently? And what is the temporary excess water done to the Anderson construction schedule?
I want to say we're at 25% or so. I think that's where we're at currently as of today. The rain during the season really that impacts our to Coyote Creek and downstream with those large releases we've had to consistently make to keep the reservoir as low as possible. That's really where the impacts are. There is construction planned in those areas near the creek, which require dewatering, so that has impacted those elements of the construction. However, the tunnel, which is really our critical component, it's underground. It's like we're working inside, so there hasn't really been major impacts from the rainstorms this year on that.
Second part of that question was, are there any new seismic risks from getting that much water at a time when you didn't expect it? And also, what are the plans for the current excess water? Does Valley Water have productive places to where to divert its?
So the seismic risk is tied to the reservoir level. So the higher the water is in the reservoir, there's more chance of something happening. At the height we reached this year, it's still a pretty slim chance that a seismic event that slumped down the dam that much that there would be overtopping. So really hasn't increased the seismic risk too much. But if it did fill in more, there would be an increased risk there. As far as, I blanked on the second question.
Do we have any, what are the plans for excess water?
So the current excess water, we have to release it as fast as possible. Unfortunately, there's not much we can do about that. There is some groundwater recharge facilities along the way at the Coyote Perk Dam and other places. But essentially that water is just flowing right out in the bay in Milpitas or it reaches the San Francisco Bay.
Are there any significant water contamination issues given recent flooding, such as agricultural pesticides or similar getting washed directly into the water supply?
None of them I'm aware of. We have been monitoring near the dam and what the releases look like as far as water quality. There hasn't been any signs of pesticides or any kind of water quality contamination.
All right, and when will the dam be finished to the point that the pipe to drain it is not necessary?
Pipe to drain it will always be necessary. I think I'm kind of reading that question correctly. If they're talking about the existing pipe, so that will be eventually demolished once we have the new inlet and outlet systems installed during the retrofit project.
Okay, we've got one more on Zoom, and then we're going to do some in the room. Let's do this last question, Jose.
When will the road that is near where the water's coming out, the feeds the creek be widened?
So one thing I didn't mention is where the current outlet is, we'll be building the new outlet about 200 feet downstream. So if you're driving towards the dam, you would see the water coming out sooner. And the area where it's coming out now will be backfilled and kind of demolished. So, like I said, up earlier as well, we're still looking at what the widening efforts will be on Cochran Road, what we can do there. That's not completely worked out in the design yet, but you definitely won't see, you know, a cascade of water coming out like you do now on Cochran Road.
But one more question here on Zoom. It's a lengthy comment, and then I'll ask the question. Since I attended the first meeting in 2012, since the project was expected to last 10 years, I asked if Community Lake could be built to capacity to store water in case we experience a lengthy drought, and to eliminate flow through Anderson during construction. Spokesperson for Valley Water said that there was speculation that the dam for Community Lake was near a fault, and that the capacity of the lake was limited to about 40%. But that was not proven in Community Lake would be filled to capacity. My question is, what is the current capacity allowed for Community Lake?
It's got a 50% restriction from the SOD, from the Coyote Reservoir, and yes, in fact, the fault goes right underneath the dam at Coyote.
Thank you, Ryan. We have time for 2 more questions, and then we'll do our best to stay late and answer any more that you might have. Well, that's the ambassador.
What is the latest that the draft EIR needs to be adopted by the Valley Water Board before it becomes on the critical path?
I'm not sure what that date is off the top of my head. I think
Sarah in the audience who will help us.
I think we're estimating May of 2024.
Thank you for that answer. Got one more at the end here.
Okay, I will get you mad, but I'll ask you anyways. So are we as taxpayers paying the bill for the 7 homes that have been purchased?
I guess in a roundabout way, yeah, they are coming out of the project budget.
Okay.
That was deferred cost to not do the heavy construction that would be needed to try to support that slope and stabilize it. So that would otherwise been spent on construction to stabilize that slope, which was, you know, not cheap.
I'm sure it wasn't. And number 2, you could build Hoover Dam in like 5 years. I just am having a hard time that it has to take so long. Like if we have a dry winter that we can't work. I mean, that's why we bought homes, is to live up there. And I just feel like if we lived in another state, it could get done. Is it because of all the bureaucrats? I mean, I have property in another town, I won't mention it, but they don't put up with crap like this. Is it just, why is it taking so long? Really? What's the reason? Gotta do some, or is it because there's so many hands in the pot? Or so much tadpoles, or so much raccoons, you gotta say, what's the real, I mean, you know, it kind of frustrates me. Because I look out there, I bought my home, to live on a lake. And I just feel like California, we're going down the wrong monkey trail.
Yeah, there's a lot of different factors at stake.
I know.
And I can speak closely to the dam safety factors. And if we were to take on a risk and try to power through a winter, we could have some serious consequences.
But other states don't take this long for their problems.
Okay.
It's California, I guess.
And then, yes, there are a lot of environmental factors, and you know, I had the same kind of questions when I came into this project, and I've learned there are a lot of different layers, a lot of different regulatory agencies, and I'm not by any means throwing them under the bus. They all have their own jobs and focuses that they need to uphold as part of their job. And so that's really the situation we're in, but we are being responsible to complete the project to meet everyone's needs, both from safety and environmental perspective.
Okay, that's our final question in person, and let's bring Chris back up for our closing comments.
Thank you very much, Mike. One other issue that's, I used to answer the question the same way as Ryan. We've got a lot of different factors that can extend our project duration. But when we do get comparisons with the original construction for Anderson Dam or the construction for Hoover Dam, one thing I'd like to point out at this point is the project that we're doing is not just a construction project or a reconstruction project. We actually have to degrade the dam down to the core. So it's like a 2-in-1. How long does it take to take the dam down and then bring it back up, right? Hoover was just bringing it up. you know, it's not an
Other
apples to oranges
states it wouldn't
comparison.
take this long. You can't tell me that other states would not take this long.
We absolutely have additional regulation in California that could be impeding the process.
Gotta love California.
But you know, I appreciate Ryan staying up here and taking all those bullets I normally would. So thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. I also want to thank additional staff for Valley Water that's here. Mike, Jose, Lynn, Colette, Sarah, everybody that I've forgotten. Tony in the back, he is our liaison. So if there's any other questions that are not at these meetings, please contact Tony. We also have Flatiron in the audience. There are our contractors on the Anderson Dam Tunnel project. Appreciate them cutting out 2 water ambassadors. So just thank everybody for being interested enough to come out, ask the questions. We appreciate Morgan Hill in general. You guys are always a lively and engaged audience. We like to come out here at least twice a year to the community center, fall and spring, to give you guys updates. It's nice to be back in person instead of on Zoom. Although shout out to everybody on Zoom. That's not a knock on you guys out there. So I just want to say thank you again and say if you didn't get enough of Valley Water and our project Anderson in general, we do have another meeting next Wednesday at 6:30, same place, same time, on the Osier Ponds, Coyote Creek. It's basically a creek lake separation project. That is a component of what we feel will be mitigation for the second stage of the Anderson Dam Seismic Retrofit project. So come on back next week and we'll do it again. Other than that, thank you very much. Good night, and we will see you shortly.